Hello, welcome to Tarot for Our Times. This is Sarah Sachs, your medium on the go. And this week has been certainly a death card week, which is one of our cards of the year. Now, about 99% of the time when this comes up in a reading, this doesn't mean death literally. But when it does come up literally, it's very important. It's rare, but it's incredibly impactful. And for this would be the death of Renee Nicole Good, shot by an unhinged ice Stapo guy. What's his name? Jonathan Ross. Yes. Okay, so along with this really tragic incident, it's also a part of the bigger meaning of the death card, which means that this is just another nail in the regime's coffin. This is, and I've been saying this, and my colleagues have been saying this, there doesn't seem to be any one big thing that's going to end this, but it's the piling on of everything. And as death marches on, the energy is getting more and more intense. So this is also the death of this regime. It's I was listening to Sterling today. He seems to think that things are going to be building up to the end of the year. Oh, another year of this. I'm not so sure. And he always suggests it for free will, and I do agree with him. I don't know that it's going to take that long. So what this death has done is really brought people together. A lot of people together in actually protests, vigil types of situation. They've all been very peaceful. There was one in Pittsburgh today, and they have really been all over the country. So as far as as far as we go in our spiritual and personal development, this is about grief bringing us together. And the question is, my first reaction to this was that this could be the tipping point, the thing that really pushes things along. Now, Sterling said it could be the flashpoint, which means it's just another thing, but it's a very important thing. Tipping means it's really going to be move the end along. I somehow feel as though it probably could be somewhere in the middle of that. I believe that this symbolizes a flashpoint or tipping point for a lot of us. And there's been a lot of discussion about the negative energy now, about people disagreeing, this sort of thing. And I think there is some validity to it, but that should not ever be confused that, well, we just sit and do nothing. So I think those could possibly be two issues altogether. I'm at the point now where I'm not quite as nice about this as other people are, where I'm really more in the mindset of you can't talk to them. You really cannot talk to those Kool-Aid drinking people, the triple Trumpers and all that. You're just wasting your time and wasting your breath. And perhaps in that sense, that is getting into negativity. And it's almost, I kind of liken it to people that, this kind of an AA thing, where people say, look, I can't stop you from drinking. I can't, maybe it's more of an Al-Anon thing. I can't fix you. I can't make you stop drinking. But if you should decide to do so, yeah, I'm here to listen and to help you out. I think this probably goes to it's the same thing with the MAGA crowd. Now, a lot of them have seen the error of their ways, so to speak. So I think, like, okay, if you want to talk, I'm here to talk to you. But to go and try to convert them, it's like trying to convert people to another religion, to either to believe in God or not believe in God. And it's just useless. The only thing you can do is just like you do with a drunk, is maybe the only kind of control is see if you can prevent them from doing harm to themselves or other people when it's in your control to do so, because it isn't always that way. So I do, and I think that maybe this, in a sense, is one, I think that these gatherings, I haven't seen the numbers yet. They're not over. I suspect they may surpass the No King's Day. I have a strong feeling about that. And all of this, of course, is for entertainment purposes only. So I think that as we move along spiritually, is to accept the fact that we're not going to be converting the MAGAs, the hardcore Kool-Aid drinking MAGAs. So why waste the energy when maybe more positive energy could be to go out and protest if you can't protest, or you've done your bit, or I understand the thing with black people. At least, you do stuff like this, or you send out the word that there is going to be a march or a vigil or something like that. And or also what I was doing right before the No King's March was, and I was really tempted to go, but I had a bunch of readings that day. But what I did was I attended an online meeting about how to protect yourself with the hostile police and so forth, and what your rights are, and posted that. Posted what I learned, which I'm surprised. I thought I knew everything about that, but apparently I didn't. So if you can pass along those little tips for people to how they can stay out of trouble and their phones and that sort of thing, you've done your part. Especially those of us old enough to have protested, the civil segregation and the war in Vietnam and all that sort of thing. That's what we do. So this is the death card, and the death card is just moving right along. And maybe this, in a way, this is the death of our not so great selves. It may be a death of the negative part of our egos, and realizing that coming together peacefully in numbers is a very, very powerful thing. So what I want to do, what I have been doing before I do the reading, is first I'm going to pull the little mate for this guy here. Okay, so, and I have been shuffling. So we have from the standard deck, what do we have here? So we have, interesting, we have the Six of Swords in reverse. So what this is telling me is that as we do this is not going to, we're not out of the rough waters. The thing is, we may be moving forward. We're not out of the rough waters because now they're going to send more ice and all this kind of bullshit. So the thing is that I always look at some of these cards in reverse. It's time to take a little bit of a pause and to be very careful of the choppy waters. Try to get an idea of what some of them can be. And there are things, and this does go to the whole thing that now there are your rights that, getting posted on Facebook and other places, because people are going to be out in the streets. I mean, if it was too cold for you today, then you can go out tomorrow, or you know what I mean? Or if you had something you had to do, don't worry, there'll be another one probably into next weekend. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently. First, I also want to pick an oracle card. I think I'm going to pick an oracle card to see if we're more of a flashpoint or a tipping point, or what does the oracle card have to say about that? Okay. So we have dreams. So the thing is, I think the message I'm getting from this is that maybe that doesn't matter. The thing is to keep manifesting the dreams for a better nation and our own better selves as well. Because I think that you can't separate this whole movement that's coming up, to differentiate that between that and what we want, with the kind of lives we want for ourselves. And with all the promises made of better lives and lower prices, spoiler alert, that they haven't happened. Believe me, I knew, not just because I'm psychic, but I just knew that they weren't going to happen. So, in the spirit of doing little things a little bit different, I want to pull a card of before, leading up to this with the before tarot, then an after tarot about what we can expect as things move along. So with the before tarot, going into this whole thing before this poor woman got shot, we have the Six of Cups in reverse. So this is a card about they're getting ready to start the day of living in the past with nostalgia. This is telling me they're stopping before we begin, because the old stuff is an illusion. And it's about don't even get ready to go back to the good old days. Because if you look at the good old days, they weren't all 1950s and 60s sitcom life. And that also, if you think like, oh, America was so much better before all of this, you need to just go back to the pre-World War II days with fifth columnists and Nazis, and it was the FBI were keeping an eye on them, but it wasn't totally looked down upon before we got into World War II. So there is that element with us as a nation. So as we go moving forward into the after tarot, we have the Queen of Swords in reverse. And she's getting ready. She's getting ready to hang up her communication for the day. But also, it's the continuation of the lies of Pam Blondie and all the other sycophants. So the lies will continue. They're doubling down on the lies. Female energy, and that comes from Christy Matrix and her little costume party. So, okay, so we have that. I'm not sure I'm going to use these cards for the rest of the reading, but I had to do that. So I would say that I think what these are saying, we may be more at a flashpoint than a tipping point, but I'd say we're getting very close to I think It's kind of like when you're putting the weight all on one side of the scaffold before it goes. That may be where we're at. So, okay, so we're going to do a general reading. Oops, let's see. Don't want to get this too far down. Okay, so with the Gilded Tarot Royale or whatever this is called. Okay, so I did shuffle them before, but I'm going to give them another shuffle. So where we're at now, the Nine of Wands. Okay, this is about us being wounded, and it's with the grief of this innocent woman that was just trying to get out of the way of these psychopaths. And I would say that a lot of things got put on hold, and now people are, especially the people of Minneapolis, are pretty much licking their wounds and doing peaceful protests, but kind of like taking a pause before going on. So that this does show a healing before he goes back to fight again. But in this card, he's in very deep thought. He's going to think about his next battle plan to keep from getting injured. So I'm going to say that these protest organizers are probably coming up with other ideas for people to at least do the best they can in keeping safe. So let's see what the energy of this, the energy behind this is. We're losing them. Okay. But isn't this interesting? We've got the Six of Swords. So this is with the goal of moving on into smoother waters, and but keeping our senses and our thoughts about us to keep the boat afloat, so to speak. This is interesting because in this deck, this woman is alone. She's without the children and the spirit guide. And I think this is about this. You know, as this whole thing unfolds, it's very important that we move forward individually. Now, we are moving into the Aquarian age collective thing, but this is really about having one's own house in order to do this, which is incredibly important. So let's give this even more of a shuffle than these are shuffled to death. Okay, so what's underlying all of this is, in the past, we have unfinished business. So this also means that this is all about, actually, that the history of, and this is what really gets me is, you know, part of the We've Been Here Before that you've heard Rachel Maddow talk about. A lot of this is the unfinished business of the fifth columnists, the Bunds, all of that sort of thing that happened in the late 30s into, they were secret then, but when World War II, we got into World War II, they became even more secret. I would think that there are children and grandchildren that are possibly more indoctrinated. They're probably MAGA. So this is the unfinished business of the past. And what this regime and Kanks have done is bringing it all to the surface. That this isn't anything new. We have been here and we never finished that business. Then we have the Page of Pentacles. So this is, he's being thoughtful about, resources, where he's going to put his resources. And thing is, a lot of money was raised for this woman that now her wife has said, okay, we've got enough, and channeling it into other people that have been victimized, this sort of thing, and into a lot of really good things. They raised like this humongous amount. So perhaps that's thinking of where is Where will this money raised from candidate? Because I am sure that the coffers of Democratic, and especially the progressive ones that are going to be in the primary, that people have been directing their donations to that. So then we have coming up, and this really talks about, in this respect, it really talks about taking it easy, taking a little break here and there, and thinking carefully with the swords around as to what moves will be made next and how to keep oneself safe. And there, with the stained glass window, there is the spiritual element. So people may need to take a little bit of a break. I would also say that people need to take a little bit of a break from the news, social media, and doom scrolling. So this is just to take a little bit of a pause. It's kind of like, I don't feel like I was up for going out to any of these things today, but hey, I just might next week. We'll just have to wait and see. So let's see. I'm going to pick an opposing card to all of this is perfect. The Four of Pentacles. That it's time for us to let go of the old ideas. And this goes to, there's a couple deep meanings to this, I think. This is like, okay, Chuck Schumer, you've had a good run. And some of the other old school things, like, obviously what you've done didn't really work for us this last time around. I would say I'm going to depart from my I've had it, ladies, and saying, and throw Hakeem Jeffries into the, trash bin. I would say, nah, he's young. I think it's time for him to, learn. He's got to go get with the AOC program, which is the future, or step aside. But he's young enough. I've seen signs that there could be hope for him, where he could tell Pelosi, hey, I am going to take your getting the caucuses together and getting the votes. That's very valuable, but your old school corporate stuff isn't quite there anymore. She knows it. I think that's why she's retiring. I had a good run. I'm too old school, but this is the opposition. We cannot stick to the old ways. And this also goes to our, as part of this kind of like awakening and all this sort of thing, is maybe we have got to let go of ideas, old ideas that in our own personal lives that no longer work for us. Maybe we need to, and this is a hard one for me, to stop the arguing with people that we get triggered on, local news, Facebook pages, because think of this. You're just probably only going to be arguing with a bot or a troll from Nigeria or Siberia. And it's kind of like Grandpa Simpson yelling and screaming at nobody. So it's kind of like, save your energy. And also, when you're dealing with people in your personal life, saying, am I going to change their lives? Or is this just going to leave me all upset and pissed off? So then you've got to consider that too. You've got to just let go of all the old stuff, because that he's only going to be stuck there longer. Okay, so we want to go on the conscious level with this new development of this. I would say this is like a national grieving kind of a thing. So, okay, so on the conscious level, we have, we see when people are lying to us, and everybody is calling them out. We are seeing the lies. Also, this goes to the point of when you do that on the national scene, you're going to see who's doing that to you in your personal life, saying, why does this sound, this is all this thing with Trump and everything. This is, I mean, I've done readings with people who have people in their lives that are a lot like him. And it just comes down to, if I can tell when he's lying, I have to be out of denial about people close to me that are lying. So I think people are becoming consciously aware of that. Okay, put this under here. On the subconscious level, we have death in reverse. I would say this is being stuck and moving forward, because maybe they're just some things, the old things from the Four of Pentacles, we don't want to let go of, because that's what the death card is all about on this journey of our moving to the transformative thing. So subconsciously, we may still be hanging on to a lot of stuff. Okay, so in the past, with all of this, we have the Wheel of Fortune. So a lot of this has materially, and it's happened with me and with my colleagues and people that have their own businesses, that whatever momentum we were building up in the past couple of past year or so has kind of stopped. Business is off. We're not, we're not prospering like we might have been a few years ago. This is also about the frustration that karma has not met up with these god-awful people like the Trumps and the Steve Millers and all of these people, and wondering if there's ever going to be accountability. The Wheel of Fortune is saying, yes, and it's been very frustrating, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen on our time of the universe. We hope that's coming up pretty soon. So, okay, so in the present, we have walking away. Now, this is walking away in both upright and reverse. But in reverse, it's about cups. Cups in reverse is about mental illness, substance abuse. I'm going to say that there may be a lot of people that are saying, you know what, this is serious, and this is part of taking care of oneself. I've got to take care of the old emotional stuff, and perhaps if there are people out there who may have been upping their drinking and pot smoking and whatever, may be thinking, this really isn't helping. So, well, people made this, this is enough to drive you to drink. I think there might be people that are saying, I'm not going to be good to anyone else until maybe I consider being on the wagon permanently. So what I'm seeing now is that people taking a look at their personal lives, saying, we have enough dysfunction when we walk out of the door in the morning. Maybe it's time to get our own houses in order. Then as we move along a little bit more into the future, we have the anxiety of, are these swords going to fall? And is there going to be more betrayal? But also it's about, which is different from this deck here, is that instead of lying there waiting for that to happen, maybe it's time to roll out of the way. Just roll out of the way. And the thing is that sometimes in our own lives we may leave ourselves vulnerable to betrayal. So the thing is that, and this is a message for you people that set this one out and that sort of thing, is that you were just lying there and you allowed those swords, or if you voted for him, you just allowed those, and then this could be the beginning of the FAFO factor, but I'm going to say that these swords are suspended. They're suspended to give you some time to move. So they're also about ending. So you can end a lot of things by moving out of the way. Wake up and move out of the way. That's what the message of this is, moving forward. Moving still more forward, we have the sun. Okay, as the sun comes out about the truth of what a hot mess this is, I would also say I'm seeing these other planets as other countries that we live with in the universe. That what that's telling us is that the other countries, as sun is shining down on them with Greenland and everything. Oh yeah, then there was the Venezuelan thing. At any rate, it's like there is no avoiding this truth. And this says, look at how intense that is. This sun is so intense that people are going to have no choice but to see the truth, which is maybe seeing this as a reflection of seeing the truth in us as well. Certain truths saying that maybe I'm part of a reflection, whether it's little things like, being silent or laughing when somebody cracks a racial joke or pretending you didn't hear it. We've all been guilty because we didn't want to make any waves. I think what this is saying is that part of our growth and development is there's certain things we're just not going to tolerate anymore. We're just not going to tolerate. Okay, so how are we seeing ourselves, and how is the rest of the world seeing us? So how we see ourselves is the King of Wands. I would say every time someone stands up to ice or does whatever little part they can, it's that saying that people are starting to see the potential of themselves being inspiring leaders. Because I would say that when troubled times hit, people are unexpectedly thrown into roles they never thought they would ever have to play. But I think what this is saying is that through all of this, in a maybe even a subconscious level, we are getting ready for this. Now, we may not be called on to do it, but what this is saying is that we're seeing ourselves as getting ready to do this. And I sure hope that's true. So how the rest of the world is seeing us is lots of stuff happening. Lots and lots and lots of... This is going to be a really, really active year with just a lot. And usually this is a good, lots of things happen. When I see it in reverse, it's either like it stopped happening or the worst stuff is happening. But with this, it's about these rods, like they're arrows hitting the target. So this is encouraging because the rest of the world is seeing that the vast majority of us are really not on board with this fascism. We just are not having that at all whatsoever. So I'm going to push these aside. I'm going to get a fresh deck here and do a little conclusion. Oh, maybe I'll use this guy since I've already had him. These are such a nightmare to shuffle, but I have been shuffling them. Okay, so we're using, are these called? The Reflective Tarot. Okay. So let's see. So with the Reflective Tarot, we're going to do a little conclusion of what all of this is. It's between Venezuela, the death of Renee, Nicole Good. And a lot of this is, again, this is more the standing up to the bully thing. Like that woman in Philadelphia who said they're going to treat them like fake police, and if they break the law, they're going to get arrested. I suspect that's what our new mayor said when he said he was going to not authorize ICE. And people said, well, how do you do that? Yeah, he does that by telling the police commissioner that if they break the law, they get arrested, and we're not going to cooperate with them. So, okay, so let's see. Okay. The base card is, love this. Okay, the Four of Pentacles. This is letting go of a lot of old stuff that the Death card is asking us to do as far as a nation and in our individual lives, because this is becoming, because of my new take and the new types of readings I'm doing, this is all about how this all connects. We, especially those of us in the metaphysical world, we no longer have the luxury of saying, oh, I don't do politics. I don't want to hear about politics, which I've been sick of hearing for years. But now I think that's one thing I'm going to say. People may start, they have no choice. They have no choice. It's like, if their neighbor that's been their best friend for years gets deported, or they get traumatized by seeing ICE Gestapo, coming into their Mexican neighborhood, Mexican restaurant, and dragging employees out of there, it's like, no, it does touch our everyday lives. Time to get my nose out of the navel. Okay. So then we have, the energy is Page of Swords in reverse. So that's going to be it's still tempting to hang on to those younger days and how we lied to ourselves and we were in denial about everything, about love, sex, rock and roll, and all that stuff that, it's like all that stuff that was part of the youth that no longer works for us. So this is saying, yeah, but it isn't going to be easy, okay? It's not going to be easy. So that's why it's kind of important to be out with the various people. In a collective way, you get support. Okay, so this is we have the Five of Pentacles in the past of sticking to this crap because we're afraid of being left out in the cold. And there's the fear of poverty, the fear of losing, this fear, that fear. The Queen of Pentacles, and right now we are in the really worrying about the lack of homeland security because we've got a frickin' dominatrix bimbo that Botoxed and fillered and costumed up, who has not made us any safer. She's just gone out and done her little pose, S&M bordello sticky posing in her costume. So that is not making us feel, and they're going after they're not even going after the criminals. So as the thing is, when they direct their attentions to this bullshit, basically what is happening is that they're really leaving the door open for the real terrorists to come in. And that is a concern. That is a concern to be worrying about. And then the Lovers in reverse, that's our seeing that there's a lot of separating with MAGA, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, even Megyn Kelly. There's a lot of splintering. So our hope is that this is going to continue to happen, because that spells the end. If you don't have the unity within the movement, it's also a cautionary tale that we cannot afford that luxury within ourselves. Now, we have every right to criticize the old school Democrats and tell them to get with the program. And the thing is, what they need to do is, if they're not going to, they're going to step down. And I think that's what a number of them are doing. But it's telling us constructive criticism, but we cannot afford to be like the MAGA splinter things. So it's like we enjoy seeing them do that, but we can't afford to do that ourselves. So we have to be very, very careful at how we criticize people. So this is the lessons that we are learning from this. But the whole thing is that as we are figuring out how we individually deal with this, that these peaceful gatherings are very powerful in numbers, because what they're saying is that there aren't enough bullets, there aren't enough guns, there are not enough concentration camps that they can build for all of us. And that's the unity, but it's also the unity of, as far as this awakening stuff goes, it's also looking out for each other. And the whole thing, and avoiding this, and this is some very good wisdom that I heard from the I've Had It, Jennifer and Angela, is that makes us different from them, is the fact that even though we were getting a little bit of a kick out of watching some of the FAFO things, and some of the Cubans for Trump gang saw their spouses getting deported and everything, after that, like, well, what did you think was going to happen? It's kind of like you feel bad for them too. I mean, that they have to learn the lesson this way. And as far as if we want to make the contrast with the Charlie Kirk thing, it's like, I wish that hadn't happened to him. I wish he were alive, because then you have a live person that can be discredited. I'm not going to go for redemption. I'm a little bit too jaded and cynical for that. But to say that, that he had a forum for people to argue, and that he could have been on his way to being discredited. And TikTok, Andy Warhol, your 15 minutes are up, but we will never know that. And he did leave a family and that sort of thing. And it's important to emphasize that maybe that's what makes us different from the MAGA crowd. So a lot of this is in our own personal lives and growth. Do we want to be, do we want to elevate to our higher selves, or do we just want to go to the, that whole thing, well, she deserved, like what they did with this woman, she deserved it and she got in the way, and totally making up a whole different reality, which I have called Rashomon for rednecks. Okay, it's like, I can't believe they're seeing that. That's how they're seeing it. But I know that I'm not going to change anybody's mind. So this is this whole thing on a national level, I'm feeling like the scaffold's going like this to tipping, not quite yet, but that maybe we can save ourselves as individuals from tipping into that whole thing. So that is the big lesson. That is the big lesson that is being taken from this. So God only knows what this next week is going to bring. You think, like, week before it's Venezuela, now it's this, and someone had this was a mother, a wife, the whole thing, that they're her husband, the father of her child, he was, I think he died in an accident, and she was happily married to a woman, and now at least there's someone left. I mean, the kid's an orphan, but at least she left someone behind to take care of the child. But it's like we need to acknowledge the deaths, whether it comes to Renee Nicole Good or Charlie Kirk. It's like that's not the answer to anything, and nobody just neither of them deserved for that to happen. So this is where we grow in our spiritually, psychologically, and everything. So who knows what I'll see when I open up the news feed? Could be anything, but everybody take care, be safe, and I'm going to sign off for now. So bye.